Hello, beautiful Filipinas. Today I want to talk about the cycle of growth, the cycle of evolution. How is it that the universe went from something less than the size of a pea to the vastness that we have today? And there's a cycle, and it originated, I believe, this kind of language, I believe, comes out of ancient Greece, but the cycle is sympathy, antipathy, synthesis. Now, sympathy is the download of the innocent child, right? So as we are born into a cult, into a culture, we automatically copy the language of our parents, the diet of our parents, the habits of our parents, right? We do the things that our culture tells us to do because those are the things that our culture tells us to do. There's not a lot of thought in a 2-year-old learning a new language, right? And there have been thousands upon thousands of language throughout time. So why learn Tagalog? Why learn Cebuano? Why learn English? Why learn Mandarin? Because the people around you are doing it. And so there's a rapid, intense download. A copy is made, right? The cassette tape records off the one cassette and copies onto a new blank cassette. This is the state of sympathy. And it's an important stage of development, of evolution, because it allows life to continue, right? Now, the next stage, because if life was the size of a pea some billions of years ago, and the pea just continued to be the pea, right? If life was this small and just copied itself, and then copied itself, and then copied itself, if your mother, if your grandmother did exactly the same thing as the monkeys 100 million years ago, nothing would change. Right? So all change comes from deviation, from iteration, from separation from the norm. Right? The norm is what has been. All change comes from separating from the norm. So the second stage of development, of growth, of evolution is antipathy. You have sympathy, where you copy what's been done, and then you have antipathy. Now, this is the adolescent state of development. The child innocently copies what has been done before. However, as a healthy child moves into a healthy adolescent state, if you're paying attention, you start to notice something. That government official is corrupt. My mother lied. My brother stole some candy, right? The priest says, right, to help the needy, to help the poor. That's what they read in the book. But the priest drives a nice car and asks the poor for a donation. I thought the Bible said to help the poor, not to have the poor help the rich, right? If you're paying attention as an adolescent, you start to notice that things are corrupt. My dad just lied, right? My friend just lied, right? My girlfriend cheated on me. You start to notice that things are not right, that things are not fair, right? That things are wrong, that things are painful, right? My best friend said, please, could they borrow this? And you loaned it to them and they didn't give it back, right? My mother borrowed my money and has never repaid it, right? This is wrong. So whereas a child innocently accepts and downloads what is, the adolescent stage of development, antipathy, is to make a list of criticisms. That's fucked up. That's lazy. That's dumb, right? That's stupid. This is nuts, right? Why do you do that? Why do you do that, right? So the adolescent is filled with criticism, is filled with rebellion. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that, right? The healthy adolescent makes a list of everything that's wrong with the world, everything that's wrong with their family, everything that's wrong with their country, everything that's wrong with humanity, everything that's wrong with life. The adolescent writes it down or thinks about it and criticizes the status quo. So the child accepts it, the adolescent criticizes and rejects it. Now, this is absolutely essential to evolution, to change, to growth. Because if the universe was the size of a pea and said, let's just accept it, right? That's the way it is. Then the universe would never grow, right? There'd never be millions upon millions, billions upon billions of planets and trillions of stars. There'd never be that. Because what is, it's okay. In other words, the creative process, the way that life expands, begins with criticism, begins with discontent. That's boring. That's hypocritical. That's shitty. I don't like it. I want something more. I want something better, right? Better than what? Better than the status quo. Why? Because it's not perfect. Right? So the basis of all change, of all growth, comes from a recognition that nothing is perfect, that everything can be improved. And secondly, it comes from noticing and expressing our distaste, our disgust, our dislike of the status quo. It comes from a recognition that everything is imperfect, that everything is wrong. Right? My car, it could be a nicer car. It could be faster. The roads could be better. My olive crop could have better olives. My pension could be rich. I could have a better pension. My boss could be nicer. Everything could be better. Right? So this is the state of antipathy. And it's a necessary state, right, in the cycle, right? Life change is a cycle, right? So we begin with sympathy. We move to antipathy or criticism or rejection. I don't want to do it that way. But the final state of change is the adult stage of synthesis. Now, synthesis says that, okay, the roads are shitty, but nothing is going to change unless I do something about it. So do I want to spend a weekend making the roads in my neighborhood a little bit nicer? Right? Because the child just accepts everything exactly the way it is and says it's perfect. The adolescent says it's all crap. This is wrong and this is wrong and this is wrong. But the adolescent doesn't actually do anything to make the world a better place. That's the role of the adult. Right? And so it's the adult's job to be responsible. The adult is able and willing to respond and thus become responsible. Able to respond, response, able. So this is what leads to the real transformation. The adult listens to the adolescent, says, I remember how it hurt me when my father beat me. I remember that, and I remember how angry and humiliated my adolescent was. And so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to raise my child without beating them. That's change, that's evolution, that's growth in response to discontent, in response to pain. in response to acknowledging what's wrong. Right? We have to acknowledge what's wrong before we can do something better. And that's why the adolescent comes before the adult. So that's the cycle of change. Now, the adult then gives birth to a child and gives the knowledge, the teaching, the wisdom to the next generation. And the next generation begins as a child and accepts it unconditionally, but then sees that there's a problem with that too. Nothing is perfect. It's never perfect. It's a cycle. It continually improves. And so your job is to find yourself on this cycle. Are you a child who has unconditionally accepted your culture, your parents, your family, and what the way of the world is? Are you an adolescent where you've become bitter, cynical, angry, discontented, irritable, critical? You see all the problems with the world. Problems with me, problems with other people. Are you an adolescent? Or are you ready to change? Are you ready to make your life a better place? To improve your family? To bring life, to bring beauty, to bring truth to your community? Are you an adult? Have you moved into the leadership position, which is that you've gathered the skill? You've gathered the money, the time, the energy, the natural resources, the knowledge to make the world a better place, to improve your life 10%, 20%, 10x. Now you're an adult. You're taking steps to make the world a better place. You're doing it with the knowledge of the adolescent in service of the child, in service of the next generation, in service of the child within.